Coming up on today's show, China, Korea, and the International Wildcard crown some champions. We take aim at the midseason invitational and reveal the winners of the first ever PTL Awards. Everyone assemble. Primetime League starts right now.
Death, what the hell? Gets a triple kill, gets the quadra, gets the pentakill.
And look at that equalizer. That was an equalizer to end all equalizers.
And SKT with Tom, with Easyhoon, takes the 3-0. GG, we'll see you at the Invitational.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Primetime League. I am Rivington Bisson III, along with Joshua Jat Leesman, manning the desk on the eve of the first ever midseason invitational.
Yeah, but before we get to MSI stuff, Riv, we have to talk about the action in the Korean and Chinese finals and the International Wildcard Invitational, which does mean there is a lot of League of Legends still to cover, so let's get started.
That is absolutely correct. So let's jump right into the Korean playoffs, where they just wrapped up their championship series on Saturday. Before we get to the finals, let's head back to round two, as second-seeded SKT had to face number 3, CJ Entus.
Yeah, this was a crazy series, actually. SKT started Tom in the first two games. They bring in Bengi in game 3. He comes back. But this game was so crazy, you can't do a 5-game series in a 4-minute highlight. If you need to see the whole series, watch the VOD. But this game 4 was crazy, Riv.
Absolutely back and forth the entire time. Here, moves from Bang in this fight took everybody off guard, taking down Thresh. Him and Faker flashed forward for the kills, and it was aggression for them through the rest of the series.
Yeah, Bang had highlight play after highlight play in this game, including this one, the amount of skill shots he could dodge, as well as the support he was being granted from Faker's mid lane Lulu right there. Was just, it was crazy. Bang was out of this world this game.
The Shields and the RNG gods were looking down on him in this game for sure. Here in this play from Marin to cut the wave so CJ couldn't finish the game.
Here's the thing. This came after SKT had lost 4 players in a fight.
Yep.
And Doa and Monty calling the game called it over basically for CJ to finish it off until he teleported in for that minion wave behind. Saved the season for SKT.
It's always the best play when it catches everybody off guard. And then it came down to a Baron. Look at that, 70 minutes on the clock. That's not a spectator glitch. They're going for it. And SKT wanted to fight even more.
Such a heartbreaker for CJ Entus to lose this one. They had the opportunity to run the gauntlet. Obviously, they could have beat Jin Air in the first round, which they did, then take down SKT in 4, but this meant they had to face Game 5 SKT in blind pick.
Game 5 SKT is a very scary SKT. That's the Pandora's box, if you will. Anybody to choose anything. You can see him closing out that 70-minute battle. So the minds were wearing, the physical was wearing. It was blind pick LeBlanc for Faker.
You can't ban Faker in blind pick, unfortunately. And he is undefeated in professional play on this champion. Early on, Coco was bullying Faker in lane until the 2v2 began in mid.
Thought you were going to kill him right there, but Bengi coming around, always in the back pocket. And to get Faker going on the Blanc this early, just the assist was the catalyst he needed.
Just the assist. And Coco, in this next move, doesn't use his ult properly. He was trying to shoot Faker back into the turret, just miss it. It cost him his life. But everything was falling apart for them at that point. It was 6 kills to 0 when that solo kill happened, and it just went from bad to worse.
Still continue to clean up fights. You can even see fighting past the Azir turret. It's not even a problem for them. The strength that SKT has in these Game 5s, I'm sure a lot of teams are kind of thanking the MSI structure for not having a blind pick there.
I mean, this series in particular, when they brought in Bengi as well, it was the old school SKT that ended up carrying them through this one. Faker in games 2 through 5, Bengi in games 3 through 5. And that set up their clash in the finals.
That's right. That set up the victory for SKT to go into the finals against top-seeded GE Tigers with the Koreans' spring split title and a trip to MSI on the line. The mini worlds, who would go?
Yeah, look at all the players that SKT had on stage there. It's like 8v5. There's no way this is going to be a fair series. Honestly, though, Tom and Easyhoon start game 1, which was a surprise considering Faker and Bengi did so well to close the last series. But it starts off well with a nice Tom ult there.
That it does. They still focus on the bottom lane. GE Tigers wanting to make sure that they don't get taken over in that area, but it does not go well for them here.
Gorilla just gets crushed at the start of this one, and Smeb tries he may to teleport in and make it a difference. They still ended up losing that skirmish, which kind of sent SKT into the lead, and another great ultimate by Tom.
Coming in very strong throughout the game, never letting Kuro do anything on that Azir, and SKT really had control of these games. It was what people expected, but not this strong.
Not with Easyhoon.
Exactly.
Like, people were not expecting Easyhoon to play much in this series. They thought it was going to be Faker since everything was on the line here. But you win one with Easyhoon, Tom. why not play it until it loses?
Yeah, you play it again, right? The coach said, oh, yeah, we're going to use Faker when we need to, when we get to those 4th and 5th games. But it may not happen with the way Easyhoon's playing. You can see the solo kills there when he takes Azir this time.
Bending that Azir soldier in, and
yeah,
the plays didn't stop there. He actually steals Dragon from over the wall, which just puts GE Tigers in a painful place.
With that Dragon, focuses on the other side of the map, steals it away from Lee, and these guys are just able to clean up. Gets his double kill, like you were saying after that. How are you going to stop this guy? Especially when you're not expecting this aggressive play from somebody like Easyhoon.
Yeah, totally crazy Easyhoon player. He was so good in these first 2 games. And honestly, Marin's Gnar was out of this world as well. He got the Gnar versus Aurelia matchup 2 games in a row, which historically the Aurelia wins that lane and the Gnar has to survive. But he was doing quite well in lane and made the difference almost not even matter.
Right. GE Tigers, we saw them with a last-ditch effort to protect their base there, but SKT, once again, too far ahead in that game 2. And now to game 3, can they keep themselves alive here? Easyhoon completely preempting this.
The instant Kuro moved his soldiers, flashing over from Easyhoon to get that ultimate, and then somehow he ticks him with that last bit of poison to get the solo kill yet again. 3 games in a row we see Easyhoon, and are we really not going to see Faker in the finals of Korea with SKT? Maybe if SKT pulls this one out.
I guess not. So glad I stayed up for these matches. Those plays definitely got me off the couch and on my feet, and still SKT showing the fight prowess around the objectives, and Easyhoon just calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah, SKT actually had a bit of a scare in the middle of this game because it took them a really long time to close out GE Tigers with the low-range composition SKT had, but eventually they find the fights and they're on their way to a 3-0.
Pushing this one just to 53 minutes. It's not a 70-minute match. They don't have to go that far for this one, but they do push it to the 3-0. And what a match it was, showing very strong and very promising for MSI.
Yeah. Look at all the players they have on stage there. But honestly, this kind of moves us into an unprecedented place in League of Legends history because you have the #1 team in Korea, and we don't even know who their starters are going to be. Right?
That's true.
Easyhoon did so amazingly well this series. Like, first off, their playoff run, they were not the #1 team during the regular season. Right? This was the #2 seed in Korea, and they had to work their way through the playoffs. On top of that, it's like a 7-man roster. With Easyhoon, the MVP of the LCK finals, the guy who's kind of supposed to be the second fiddle mid laner, which wasn't really the case. He only got stronger as the series progressed as far as kills go. And I really wonder what's going to happen with Faker and Easyhoon now because Easyhoon showed up in these finals.
He really did. It was a big stage to be showing up on as well. Back and forth all year. I said it before, it's one of the substitutions across any region that we've seen working better than any.
Yeah.
We see a lot of people be like, oh, we have turmoil, we'll switch our mid. These guys switch their mid for fun. How are you going to beat that?
Yeah, fun strategy. At this point, his Cassiopeia and Azir play looks better than Faker's.
It's crazy.
And I wonder if they use that as a strategic edge.
We'll see. MSI on the way for them. The Chinese LPL also recently crowned their own spring split champion as first place Edward Gaming and 6th place LGD took it all the way to 5 games.
Gee, spoiler alert, we're only going to start the highlights right now, Riv. But yeah, this was a crazy thing. Again, LGD was the 6th seed coming into the playoffs right here. Makes it all the way to the finals in dominating fashion, and early on, they're trying to kill Deft in the bottom lane.
Trying to kill Deft. They do get him, but at what cost? We can keep this fight going. It's only a Nunu coming in, and Clearlove's not going to do that much damage. We'll be all right. Man. Wait, there's the double kill, and somehow this just leads out. Acorn as well. He's like, well, we didn't get anything. I'll try to go for more. Oops, this was probably a mistake.
Clearlove already has a triple kill at this point. He's like, all right, I don't want to pick up 4. I'm going to walk away. Just walk away. The minions killed him anyway. A quadra kill at the start of the game for Nunu. Not the greatest gold distribution. He's still 80% of the team's kills 33 minutes in when a dragon fight breaks out.
Very true. Gets the dragon for the team, and they are trying to find a way around LGD, God V's Ori. Somehow they do this time.
Yeah, and watch Imp in this fight. Nunu can't kill Imp, even if he has 4 kills. And the Jinx just starts getting resets in this fight. They drew the game out later and later, and eventually the kill distribution was not ideal for EDG, but it was for LGD, and they pull out a Game 1 win.
That Jinx pick in general, back and forth for Deft and Imp, really put kind of a thorn in each of the players' side, being such a good AD carry for them.
Yeah, 2 amazing AD carries matching up here, and as the games fell was pretty much which AD carry was successful.
Right, absolutely. Here you can see, this is the only highlight coming in from this game, Koro's flank. This was completely a game changer. They had a little bit of a lead, but this just extended it out of the reach of LGD.
Yeah, pretty cool EDG composition with the Jace and the Corki. A lot of long-range damage. It kind of made up for having a somewhat magic damage AD carry. Strong game overall through the laning phase and into the team fights there.
And here we jump into game 3, right towards the top lane. A lot of these fights being extended. Obviously, the tank meta is going to allow for that, and they actually are able to pick up TBQ on this one, coming out of the play as well.
Yeah, Koro back on Gnar. Game 1 was his first Gnar loss that he's had as a player.
That's
one.
true.
Now he's back on in the game 3. Some really solid plays. Specifically, watch this dragon fight. Watch the Gnar ultimate here.
Gnar ultimate and that Sej 1, 2, and the complete lockdown. There's not much you can do after that. Imp trying to clean up from the outside of the fight, and back and forth. The Sivir ultimate helps him out for a little, but EDG are just able to find what they need here.
Just a devastating Gnar ultimate to start that team fight, and it was still pretty close because everyone was so clustered, but look, 5 players from EDG alive at the end of that one, evening the kill score, but taking control of the game.
A bit of that death ball action coming out in the LPL League. EDG take it. And we do move on to game 4. 12 and a half minutes into this one. We already started the dragon fight. 3-3 as kills have been flying through the game, and it's not going to stop the focus for Imp.
Yeah, and Godvy's Orianna is out of this world.
Yep.
He's so good at that champion. Maybe the best Orianna in the world. Pawn picked Fizz last as some weird counter pick, which, believe me, it's not a counter pick to Orianna in any sense of the word. 4-0 after that fight, and he just snowballs that advantage. Look at that shockwave. Just
the ball placement inside the head of EDG there. They could not do much to get around it, and they can't do much to stay alive after these fights either. Great moves by LGD to continue the strength in this series.
Such an awesome back and forth series. There was a nice evolution.
It's like a yo-yo.
Nice evolution in the pick ban phase as well. Kassadin was super highly valued. Jace was a nice counter pick to Kassadin. Sometimes you'd see a first pick. Honestly, if Godvy stuck with Orianna the whole time, LGD might have had a better chance here. But in Game 5, it's actually a twisted fate for Lissandra at mid.
And it is a twisted fate on the plate over and over for LGD here. They definitely had in mind what they wanted in Game 5, and that's to kill Pawn.
Yeah, they used that early roam and the double jungling to actually do a turret dive at the start of the game, and they continued that. Pawn dying under his turret twice within the first 6 minutes. Not going to be his game. Someone else would have to do the heavy lifting for EDG.
Someone else would definitely have to do the heavy lifting, but they made all the right calls. Even this one, I thought it was a mistake. Pawn on the outside, he can't help, but EDG is able to control this fight and make the necessary moves to keep it in their favor.
Yeah, and this is why people call Deft the best AD carry in the world in team fights. His laning phase has been suspect in the past, but watch the end of this team fight. Who in their right mind would see the kills that Deft sees? Watch him here. Everyone is alive. He flashes in very soon. There it is. And he kills everyone. Just like that. Who sees that play at the end of a Game 5?
Well, they praise him for his use of summoner spells and his ability to position in fights all the time over there in the LPL. Pastry, Papa, and all those guys say it all the time, and you can see it right there.
What a play to flash in at the end of that fight. A pentakill at the end of the 5th game of a regional final. What a feeling that
I can't wait to see what happens. We got Quadras coming out of NA finals, Pentakills coming out of the LPL finals. It's going to be awesome when we get to MSI.
Yeah, Wild Turtle had a quadra kill at the end of his.
Exactly.
Not as impressive as that one. That Deft pentakill was something else.
Somebody's going to have to show up in MSI. And even though Edward Gaming struggled more in the playoffs than they did during the regular season there, they did walk away with the title and the trip to MSI. So it'll be interesting to see what they can produce there.
Yeah, EDG, the #1 seed throughout the regular season, really the dominant team in China, does pull it out in the playoffs, even though it went to 5 games in both the quarterfinals and in the finals. This one was kind of a Deft versus Imp battle.
Yeah.
Back from Korea, they both come over to China, they find themselves in the final, and we said during the highlights, the AD carry who had the better numbers was always on the winning side, and it was pretty drastic there if you look at the games that Deft actually was victorious in. If he got a kill, they won the game. It's basically how it went in these ones. And it's going to be really exciting to see how Deft fares on the world stage once again.
Looks like they both made each other cry a little bit, but Deft comes out on top. So heading into the series, there was speculation on whether Pawn would be healthy enough to play. And luckily for EDG fans, he was able to man the mid lane and pull a huge trump in Game 5.
Yeah, I mean, his Twisted Fate in Game 5 was super struggling, but Pawn's performance overall, you do have to compliment the guy because we need to get more solid information on what his medical problem actually is. But in the quarterfinals, he was legitimately hospitalized for a medical condition. He's been able to power through these playoffs. And also, he has been confirmed for MSI. I hope that stays confirmed. They don't have to bring someone else in, because that's one hell of a player to miss out from an international tournament.
Right. Initial news is always better safe than sorry. Maybe that's what came across, and everybody kind of telephoned it. It's always easy to get those things out. But he is in. We get to see that pawn play. The 6th team now to earn a spot in the midseason invitational won their way through the gauntlet known as the International Wildcard Invitational, and it was quite wild.
Yes,
where the finals featured hometown favorite Besiktas versus tournament favorites Ince Esports, and they battled it out quite hard, and these games went the long haul.
Yeah, the International Wildcard Invitational games were so crazy. The entire tournament, it was everything you could ask out of having 7 emerging regions fight it out for one spot.
Absolutely.
And these finals were crazy, to say the least.
And definitely a lot of nerves coming in for these teams.
Definitely.
As we see in a lot of these highlights, Ince will have the lead, but the plays just kind of go a little too far. These ones start to work out. The early game, they have what's in mind. They do what they need to, but those plays start to hurt them.
Ince had a really up and down IWCI. They had a bad first day, then they looked like the best team in the tournament by far in so many games. This was one of those games where Ince just looked better than the other team. Yang was so powerful at this stage in the game.
Kind of big.
He nearly kills Nardius while getting 3v1, but meanwhile, Ince actually taking the base.
Taking the base, and you can see here, they do want that inhibitor, but they lose Macau. Situations like this continue to happen, continue to domino here in favor of Besiktas. This first game, Ince able to keep control of it for the most part, though.
Yeah, you can see all the while Yang always with that split push threat. Besiktas could just never get them off of the split push game. It didn't hurt that Ince had a 10,000 goal lead for so much of this match.
Yeah, able to close out game 1, feeling very confident going into game 2. Besiktas really the favorite here for the region, hopefully able to step up.
Playing in front of that home crowd, you know, they wanted to show up. That game 1 loss was difficult, and then they find themselves in the hole so often in this series. But 52 minutes in, they find their way back, try and win a fight at Baron.
And with that last fight, Ince was still pushing towers, like you said, to this Baron, and they lock it down. Macau gets that with the Baron, with the Sivir, I should say, and they get Baron and start to run.
It's so hard to figure out exactly how he got that Baron. There's chaos going on. It was mainly the rumble there from Thaldrin that was dominating and so integral in their comeback in this game. Versus game 3, they're 1-1 in the best of 5.
And already we jumped 28 minutes in. Thaldrin doing what he can and taking down Macau here was huge to make sure this turret didn't fall, keeping BJK pretty much on the iron lung.
Yeah, Besiktas fighting back from the grave here. They were down 10,000 gold in this game, let's not forget, and Ince just kept getting Baron and forcing that fight over and over there. Besiktas with the steal there to keep themselves alive.
So far ahead, still a gold lead here. They lose that Baron, and BJK
Baron again
is coming in very strong.
This time INTZ gets it, but they hadn't been able to close the game. Besiktas extends it out over and over again, meaning this team fight means who wins the game.
And they kind of pushed themselves into it. One missed ult, and then they fired everything onto the Hecarim. He just backs away, and you can see Besiktas in full control here once the fights start to break out.
So crazy. 2 games in a row here, Besiktas came back from a pretty heavy goal deficit.
Yeah,
this one even more so. They lost a Nexus turret early on in this game, remember, going into game 4 with, I suppose, the momentum from those comebacks.
Well, they look to make energy pay right here in the beginning. It's almost like what we saw from the LCK, or I should say LPL games. Focus the mid lane and hope it works, but Theocles comes up huge here. If it doesn't work the first time, you got to walk away, guys.
Jungle from Theocles was huge this game, and then Ince goes for a desperation Baron. It's stolen by a flame spitter from Thaldrin. Besiktas, again with the gold deficit and kill deficit, come back from the grave. This equalizer ended the series.
That's like throwing a match into the Baron pit and picking it up. That equalizer did cook the entire team of Ince. That's the last meal they would try to go for, and Besiktas would go for seconds on this one.
Yeah, I mean, comeback victory after comeback victory.
Yep.
Such a story for Besiktas, playing in front of their home crowd as well. Ince was the favorite coming into this tournament. Let's make no mistakes. They weren't the highest out of the group stage, but the faith they had from the Brazilian region behind them, they were supposed to win this one. And Besiktas pulled out the upset.
And it's kind of just out there that it's obviously going to be harder for these guys to beat all the teams going in the region, but Kaboom did it last year. They took a team off guard, and that's what they can get is trap games on these teams that aren't ready, that are actually wanting to fly through MSI.
Yeah, Besiktas is going to be so difficult for them as they move towards MSI because this is a team, if we look at their laning phase, it was pretty lackluster, even against INTZ. You know, even looking through everything, they narrowly qualified with a 3-3 record in the group stage at IWCI. They only made it through because they had the head-to-head record against Chiefs from Oceania, who were also 3-3. And then, in that first semifinal series, they had to face the Bangkok Titans, who had a 5-1 group stage, but they 3-0'd them, which sent them to the finals in the first place, Riv.
Well, hopefully they can find that surge of power here as they get into the MSI finals, or I should say MSI tournament itself. Finals would be a pretty damn good thing for them. Then now get ready for some incoming puns as Freak takes us into your tweets.
Thank you very much, Riv. And while I may look like Babraham Lincoln, I am most definitely David Freak Turley. And of course, I'm happy to bring my genius back to the show. Now let's check in with all of our friends in the Twitterverse to see how you did. Last week on PTL, we asked you which team will win the International Wildcard Invitational, and for a chance at the Hall of Fame, who will win the LPL Finals, and how many total kills will there be in that best of 5? And we just heard earlier, the answer was, of course, the hometown team of Besiktas Esports Club for the International Wildcard, and of course, Edward Gaming winning the LPL with a total of 135 kills in that series. Amazingly, 8 of you were actually able to talk turkey and pick Besiktas to win it all. Nice job. But I'm extremely disappointed that none of you nailed the total number of kills in China's final series, which means that we won't be admitting anyone into the Hall of Fame this week. And don't worry, I, David Freak Turley, am also going to permanently ban myself from the Hall of Fame because I'm here right now. And I didn't get it right either. Sorry, Freakazoids, I apologize. Now, for this week's question, we want you to build your ultimate MSI team made up of 5 players who will be competing at the mid-season invitational. So pick who you think is going to be the best at each role and tweet your 5-man lineup to @LOEsports along with the hashtag PTL. For example, I would choose Huni in the top lane, Santorin in the jungle, Faker mid, Deft AD carry, and Yellow Star support. Good one, Freak. Oh, I forgot I'm left-handed. Turns of damage. Technically, there are no wrong answers, so I reserve the right to judge your lineups and totally mock you just because that's how I roll. So, while you put together your OP MSI squads, let's head back over to Riv for an in-depth look at MSI.
Thank you, totally, definitely Freak. And is it cheating if I just put Faker in at every role? Sure, that's what everyone wants to do. Now, the mid-season invitational begins tomorrow, and I'm joined here by a panel of experts to break down the teams from their respective regions as we size up the competition. First up, we have OGN caster William Chobra Cho from Korea. Next is Garena caster Clement joining us from Taipei. Julian Pastry Time Carr, who not only called the LPL all season long, but who also covered the entire international wildcard tournament. And joining for the first time on PTL, we have Devin Pyrotechnics Young from the European LCS. While holding down the local 4 is, of course, Joshua Jatleesman. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on the show.
Right on, man.
All right, guys, the first thing I need to do for you is to give me a breakdown of each of the team's biggest strengths and most glaring weaknesses in a segment we're going to call Pros and Cons. Jat, we'll start with you and Team Solo Mid. Tell me what their biggest strengths and weaknesses are. You've got 1 minute. Hit.
1 whole minute. I mean, I think it's in the name for Team Solo Mid as far as the pros. It's the mid lane, but mainly in how they support that lane as well, because it's not just jungle ganks that come there. It's also Lustboy, who roams up frequently. I think Bjergsen and the way they support the mid lane carry style is the biggest strength of Team Solo Mid. I put Wild Turtle as a secondary carry, and while people like to knock on his positioning, I think that's a problem of the past. I think recently his positioning has gotten substantially better, so he's a guy who will maximize his damage in most team fights, which is what any good AD carry should do. I think the cons of Team Solo Mid, though, is Dyrus. He's a bit of a liability in some games. For one, because when he is left on an island, he doesn't play as safe as he needs to. He greeds for a lot of CS, and I think if a team can really put down Dyrus, they can quickly turn the game into a 4v5 or try and snowball their top lane jungle synergy into a victory. I think when we've seen Team Solo Mid falter this year, that's been one of the main reasons. Or if Team Solo Mid tries something a little bit too crazy because they want to show they're diverse instead of just going with what they're best at, which is the mid lane.
Pace your time. Same question. Edward Gaming's biggest strength and most glaring weaknesses. You're on the clock.
I mean, It's funny that we come just after TSM because EDG are almost a supercharged TSM with Pawn in the mid lane and Deft down the bottom for carries. Instead of having one carry though, EDG have two, and when either Deft or Pawn or God forbid both manage to go off, the games get taken over pretty quickly. As far as cons go, it's actually their best performing player, Clearlove, that's their biggest strength and biggest weakness. If he has a great game, look for him to take over and completely carry games on his own without the use of his massive carries, but when he falls behind, when he's not on a playmaking jungler, when he's playing too passively, his team falls apart completely.
All right, Jobra, now looking at you, it's SKT time. Go.
Well, it's pretty hard to go with both pros and cons for a team like SK Telecom T1. But let's start with the pros, right? They have some of the best players in all positions. It's not just the Faker show anymore. We've seen Bang completely carry games. Marin has finally stood up to that reputation he's had. And of course, both junglers, Bengi and Tom, and EasyHoon in the finals of the LCK. But here's the kicker for SKT is that usually when teams have like the best laners, their team fights are just maybe passable, or they're not exactly the most aggressive team once it comes to the mid and late game. But no matter which roster they use, if it's Faker and Bengi, Faker's the one taking those big risks, initiating those fights. If it's Tom and EasyHoon, Tom will just go in on that Sejuani or other junglers that he wishes to choose and start just ridiculous team fights, and then the rest of his teammates will carry through with their mechanics. I mean, that's pretty unbeatable in my opinion. However, their cons, if we had to list any, I do think Wolf is their weakest link. Wolf just hasn't really shown up to be that he's the superstar of the team, the superstar support in Korea. And oftentimes recently in their matches, Wolf has admitted himself that, oh, you know, I thought we were going to give a comeback to the other team because I got caught out. So maybe if they clean that up, they really will be that perfect SKT once again.
Sounds good. All right, Clement, you've been covering the AHQ all year. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the surprise LMS champs?
Well, I think that AHQ is one of the best brawler teams we have right now. They have a really unique team fighting style, and because of this patch, their front lines aren't that easy to kill, so they can go on you anytime they want. Another pro they have is that their bot lane, Anne, has been super dominant this season. 84% kill participation in this playoffs match, incredibly good. But when you look at the cons of AHQ, they've said that this themselves, they're a bit over-aggressive. They're not as patient as they can be. They average a lot of kills in games, and they're really good in dragon fights. But a lot of these times, if a team is patient and smart, they can punish AHQ for this over-aggression.
All right, and Pastry and pulling the reverse card, we're going to hit back to you before we hit Europe to talk about Besiktas. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Besiktas, the biggest strength is definitely their early game aggression. When they got ahead in a game, whether it was through objectives or kills, they were able to snowball very effectively, and they fight well together when they're ahead. The biggest weakness, of course, comes at the same cost, as if they can't get ahead in the early game, they'll struggle to play from behind and close out a game when they don't have a lead already.
All right, and Pyra, let's hear about Fnatic.
All right, well, Riv, Fnatic is a team, obviously, many associate the brand with some serious victories, but this is a whole brand new roster coming in, minus Yellowstar, of course. We've got 4 new players in the team, and they have done absolutely fantastic. Biggest strength for this team, though, is just how surprisingly well they've been able to fight together, how well coordinated they are as a team. They know each of their roles. Huni goes in. Febivin is able to secure kills in the back. Yellowstar roams around. Steelback just pumping out damage constantly. And, of course, Reignover securing the vision and setting up the plays for the team. So all these things really come together to work well for Fnatic. But their weakness, obviously, very untested roster outside of the European LCS. We'll have to see how they do at MSI, but you know, a lot of these guys very, very new to the big stage, and you know, they've definitely had some ups and downs bouncing around a little bit. We've seen that their one-dimensional style has kind of bothered them in the past, and they haven't been able to overcome it all the time.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for the breakdowns, but I do want to dig a little deeper because the teams at MSI are made up of the best players from their regions, and that means different play styles and strategies from around the world are going to be clashing in the lane. So let's take a look at the roles for a sneak peek at what to expect this week. First up, we're going to have to go to the top lane. What do we expect these players to bring on a lonely island? There's been a lot of meta shifts and a lot of looking at the top laners for this. Chobra, we'll start with you.
Well, all right, top lane, I think we look at Marin, and I think he really understands how to play that top lane right now. What really interests me for Marin is that when he debuted, he used to be hailed as the faker of the top lane. He was going to play all these carry top laners. Of course, we didn't see that happen given the meta and the style of T1S at the time. But now, he doesn't need to do that. He's still playing all these tank top laners that are popular in the current meta, and he's also bringing back champions like Gnar and making it work and still holding that carry potential to just ruin team fights for the enemy team. Marn, at the same time, his teleport timings have been excellent. They've really improved to match the top teleporters of the world. I think he's really had it all. He has the 1v1 mechanics in lane, he can teleport when he needs to, and then come team fight, he knows when to go in and completely cause chaos.
All right, and Pyro, looking at you, what do we expect for Fnatic to bring out of that top lane?
Oh, well, everybody's been chanting Huni's name for a reason all season, Riv, and it's just awesome the way that we've seen him play. And really similar to the way Chober's talking about Marin there, is it just is a huge amount of impact. And, he's able to teleport exactly when his team needs him to, but the champion choices are really what sets him apart. That Hecarim, when he started bringing that out, he just absolutely decimated the rest of Europe with it. Yes, he's been a little bit shaky on some of the other choices, Shyvana, Lee Sin, didn't quite work out with that top smite, but he has been absolutely fantastic. And there's a reason we gave this guy Rookie of the Year. He's 100% earned it.
All right, chat, we're going to jump over to NA, taking a look at that top lane. You spoke a little bit about it before.
Yeah, I mean, Darius is not the same star power as a Marin, Koro, or Huni because Darius brings a different aspect to the game. Like I said, I think it's potentially one of TSM's weaknesses because they do not focus priority on him, and he does have a tendency to die a fair bit when he's left on his own. I just kind of want to bounce off some of what the other people have said because Gnar, to me, in the top lane at this MSI is going to be super exciting. Marin, particularly in the Korean finals, played it into the Aurelia matchup, and for pretty much the first time was able to either win or go even in that matchup. I really liked the Mercury Treads plus Warden's Mail build to neutralize Aurelia, but the Gnar matchup between Marin and Koro, and Pastry, I kind of want to get your opinion on this. Like, who is the better Gnar between those two guys? Because Koro is, 18-1 with it?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he got defeated in the finally on his Gnar, but I'm still going to put Koro as the best Gnar in the world. I think mechanically that 1v1 in a top lane, he's not as good maybe as really just putting people down in a lane and bullying them. But Koro's one of the best team fighters in the world, and it shows in the way he teleports, and it shows in how he fights. He can carry games. He could probably carry them on Teemo, let's be honest, and team fight with him. But when you give a guy a high-impact champion like Gnar, he goes off. Like, he tried really hard to carry losing games on Gnar and couldn't do it because Clearlove just didn't have a high-impact jungler. He was playing Nunu, I'm pretty sure. But you want to talk about team fighting Gnars? I think Koro, for me, is hands down the best in the world.
All right, Clement, I want to jump to you now. HQ Esports Club with a big surge at the end of the split. Was a lot of that from the top lane? How much can be credited there?
Of course, man. Ziv has really improved on his champion pool, and most important of all, he has had great teleports this playoffs. But unfortunately, he also had to go through 12 days of military service right before MSI, so we're not sure if he's still up to shape. But I have to say he has had the best damage share out of any top laner in the LMS, and he does play these tanky top laners, as well as the carry top laners like Vladimir and even Kennen.
All right, Pastry time. Covering the International Wildcard Tournament, I kind of want to gauge you on Besiktas top laner. Is they going to have what it takes to really come into the MSI strong?
Thaldron's an interesting player, actually, from Besiktas. He's really strong, and it was actually their carry for their team. During the group stages of the tournament, he didn't perform as well as we might have expected, but he came up massive in the finals. And it's funny that we talk about tank players and we talk about carry top laners who don't really exist anymore. Thaldron's still classically a carry top laner. Look for the Hecarim for sure. Probably a little less of the Gnar Maokai action going on. And if he plays his Riven, he didn't play it in the tournament, but it's his favorite champion, and that's a big carry he could pull out as well. Obviously, the team comes in probably as an underdog, but Thaldron can certainly look to upset some people, especially if he plays something nice and fancy like Riven.
Well, we heard what Caster June said in the video. These players are going to have to do abilities that they don't even know they have to bring the win out here. Now let's move on to the jungle. And keep in mind that MSI will be played on the 5.7 patch. Will these guys be laughing all the way to the gank?
I mean, that's the thing about this patch that's interesting, is that when you're playing with a bunch of support junglers with an item like Cinderhulk that's just so cost-effective, you don't really lose very much by being aggressive with your resources. Like, seriously, if you get into the enemy jungle and get an experience lead, the thing that matters most in something like Sejuani Gragas as a matchup is levels. It's not items, it's levels. You need your ultimate. Yeah. So if you go in and get ahead of the enemy jungler, you're miles ahead if you're a level half ahead. But even if you go in and it doesn't work, you still have the option of farming up the rest of your jungle and then coming back when you do have your ultimate.
All right, and Clement with AHQ obviously surging at the end. What are your thoughts on with this Cinderhulk meta jungle coming in? Has AHQ been strong in this fashion, and will they be able to compete at MSI?
Yeah, I just want to echo a lot of what the others said right now, is that if you are an aggressive jungler, then this is the patch for you. And that has been the case with Mountain. When we did the statistics, he actually took 30% of the enemy's jungle when he was playing Gragas. And he also had the highest KDA in the playoffs at 13 or KDA. Really high, really aggressive player, really hard to kill. And he also has this really aggressive mentality where he's always trying to run into your team. And like everyone has said, it's really hard to punish because the junglers right now are very hard to kill. Of course, the 5.7 patch has kind of nerfed this down a little bit, so we're really waiting to see if Mountain can keep this up for HQ.
All right, and Pyra, there's a lot of talk of aggression, a lot of talk of taking the fights and engaging. That's something Reignover loves to do. You think Fnatic's going to be able to bring it in with the jungle at MSI?
Oh, absolutely. Reignover has been an absolute beast for his team in terms of trying to get not just the fights rolling, getting a lot of the early vision up. One big trick that he does that really no one else in Europe seems to have any answer for is he always roams down to the bottom, takes a scuttle crab early, just goes through the jungle. You know, he doesn't always take the jungle, he doesn't always counter, but he kind of leaves no trace. The guy's sort of like a ninja that way. And in the same sense, you know, with all these really strong players on the team, people don't talk about Reignover as much, but he's an integral part of the team. He's always setting up these fights, and he makes big plays for them. So, while you may not hear as much people singing his praises, you definitely see his impact on Fnatic.
It's very interesting how some of the junglers can work behind the curtain. Now, moving forward, we definitely have to take a look at what a lot of the community in general and almost every tournament says. It's coming down to the mid lane, gentlemen. With players that have assembled in Florida for MSI now, I expect there to be some epic clashes in that lane. Pyra, when these guys go head-to-head, who's going to come out on top?
That is obviously a pretty tough call for a lot of mid laners, but everyone has one name on their mind. Of course, it's always going to be Faker. You know, I mean, they didn't really need him for the finals that SKT did, so it's going to be hard to call for the rest of the teams, but I think he's definitely got the edge there. But we might see some EasyHoon action. I don't want to take all of Chover's points, so I'll let him discuss that.
Well, I mean, I think it's the main point that we all have to talk about, right? Is like, who's it going to be, EasyHoon or Faker? Because I'll let you go in a second, Chover. Like, I'm wondering at this point whether EasyHoon is a better fit for that team than Faker when Tom is in specifically.
Of course.
Tom is like such an aggressive jungler when he's on, like his feast or famine style. If he makes an initiation, you almost want a mid laner who is less susceptible to ganks because he's not going for as many big plays. But then we saw EasyHoon get 2 solo kills in the finals. Like at this point, when they use him to win the championship 3-0, I'm wondering how much EasyHoon we're going to be seeing at MSI.
Yeah, so I might get a lot of hate for this, but I'm going to put it out there. I think it's and all right, and there's actually a small community in Korea too, within like the larger League of Legends community that believes this, is that we might be seeing a time here where EasyHoon actually is rising as the best mid laner. And I know it's just blasphemous.
I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable.
But I think it's reasonable because, like you said, Jat, EasyHoon, like, he was never a bad mid laner, but the problem was that he was too passive. He was safe. He would get you the win if you went to 50 minutes, right? He would get you the win if he could play Ziggs and farm all the lanes for the 30 minutes starting at the 20-minute mark. But suddenly, yesterday, we see him going for those tower dives. We see him flashing in lane for a 1v1 kill against Kuro. I mean, this is, like Doa said in his cast, who is this guy? I mean, this is not something we'd ever expect from EasyHoon. And I do think, actually, it pays off better because we've seen this time and time again, even since Season 1 and Season 2, where we have these risk takers in mid lane, and they'll be the superstar, but oftentimes they'll also be the bane of their own team. I mean, I think about, for instance, Reginald when he was playing for TSM. He was the superstar of the team, but sometimes his risks wouldn't really pay off for TSM as a whole. We're seeing that a little bit with Faker these days, where he's still going off, and sure, his mechanics still hold him up, but does it really pay off for the rest of the team? It works when Bengi's in there, because Bengi is generally much more of just a macro jungler. But when Tom's in, I totally agree with you, Jad. I think EasyHoon really just rounds out the team better. And when he needs to take advantage of the lane 1v1, he'll do it. So I'm actually favoring EasyHoon as the better mid laner and strategically better for SKT. However, you know, maybe Koma will go for some fan service and let that Faker versus Bjergsen happen.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. I got to definitely touch on with Pastry here because you still have a world champion in Pawn in that mid lane who took another team to first place in the region. Pastry, what's the power like coming out of the LPL?
Pawn's not bad at League of Legends. No, he's really, really good.
He's all right.
Apart from the Super Goku Game 5 story versus World Elite, where he came out and hard carried a game on Kassadin, Pawn's ridiculous. Pawn is mechanically amazing. He loves to 1v1 people. Fantastic team fighter. Can play just about any champion. And for me, for all of the superlatives I can throw at Pawn, his biggest trait for me is his flexibility. He is liquid in that mid lane. He will play anything you want. If it's an AD, he'll play it. If it's a support, he'll play it. If you need a Twisted Fate, he's in there. If you need an Assassin, he's in there. His LeBlanc draws bans constantly and for good reason. His Lulu's great. His Twisted Fate's great. His just about everything's great. He still plays Fizz because he's crazy. Pawn's insanely good. He's probably the best looking player in the LPL. Not the best performing. I think Clearlove or Def probably holds that right at the end of the season. But he's the strongest looking player from China, and that is a scary thing to say about any player.
Yeah, and don't forget, he did regularly beat Faker in
Yeah, I mean, that could be fun. Maybe just some revenge, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of wanted to touch on, because if we looked at Pawn's alliance next time, is when Pawn played at Worlds last year, he wasn't expected to be this Faker level player. He was he's an okay mid laner. Then he started playing Assassins. I think he's really come into his own in the split in the LPL, and he's kind of ascended, which might be what we're seeing from EasyHoon right now. But I do need to talk about Bjergsen specifically, because I have some regional stats that I kind of want to bring up. Bjergsen dominated North America more than any other mid laner dominated their own region of the major regions we've seen here. He averaged a 1,000 gold advantage over his opponent at 20 minutes during the regular season. There was one game in the entire regular season where he did not have a gold advantage on the opponent mid laner at 20 minutes, and that was a 10 gold disadvantage. Bjergsen has been so head and shoulders above everyone else in North America, and he does have, whether it's a small sample size or not, a lot of international experience, some victorious. He's been to Worlds last year. He experienced that. He then won IM Katowice, and this is TSM's moment to kind of shine, and he is the centerpiece of that team. So that's another big-time mid laner we have to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, I have to agree, Jet. Bjergsen is not only one of the best domestic players, that's been true for a while, both in Europe when he played and in North America now in his current home, but even internationally, the guy's an absolute beast. I expect this guy to take a mid lane against almost anyone and just feel comfortable. He's so good.
Yeah, I definitely hold Bjergsen at high regard, but I'm also interested. I mean, ever since we heard his name and finally that he was going to play professionally in AHQ, Westor. I mean, he's kind of been this myth, and then he never really showed up on an international stage. So I'm wondering, how is he looking now, Clement? I mean, can we expect kind of the myth of Westor to come back at the MSI stage?
Well, I think he hit a slump this season just because, thanks, Rito, you nerfed a lot of his assassin champions, but he is coming back in the meta just because he's been able to play a lot of these protection mid laners for his carry Anne. Picks like Karthus with his Rylai's and picks like TF. He's been back on his Season 2 champions, which are treating him really good. And also to note, he's in top shape. He's currently rank 1 and rank 2 on the Taiwanese servers, so I do expect him to play well, but also he hasn't been doing that well in terms of a one-on-one lane perspective. In the playoffs, he hasn't really been able to hold his own against Maple from Flash Wolves, so I really see AHQ and Westor shaping into a secondary focus on AHQ. They really want to put more of their resources onto Anne, who is their main carry currently.
Hopefully that works out for them. It does seem like Westor is a little shadowed by all the other bigger mid laners right now, so maybe he can fly under the radar as a dark horse and kind of squeak by with the team. Obviously, we still have Febiven from Europe, Pyrotechnics. He's kind of a new love for Europe over there. Really strong mid laner coming out. How's he going to fare against the rest of this competition at MSI?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you, Riv. He's definitely a little bit more rough around the edges than some of our other more established talents in those regions, but he's still a very, very strong player. He loves his very high mechanical, high skill shot kind of champions. Obviously, we saw his Xerath, and everyone was making the jokes on Twitter about how he was scripting it up. Just so many ultimates he was able to knock down. But obviously, those days are kind of come and gone. He hasn't really been playing that kind of thing. In the finals, he played, Twisted Fate, he played Ahri, he played Kassadin. He had some mixed success on that. So it's kind of hard to see where he's going to stack up with the rest of these, star-studded mid laners. But you can bet he'll be a big part of Fnatic's strategy to just make sure he cleans up the kills constantly. You can expect his KDA to soar through the roof.
All right, gentlemen. Now, as we move down the list, a position that can sometimes carry a game on their back or with the wrong position cost the team their game. We've seen a lot of diversity in the AD carry role across the globe this year. Which AD carry do you think has the edge at MSI? Pastry, you've been covering the land of AD carries all spring long. Let's start with you.
Yeah, China, of course, known as the land of AD carries for a while. Put in some Korean players, and as it turns out, the Koreans are still really good as well. Deft, not only did he miraculously win his team the Game 5 against LGD. He beat Imp, by the way, to do that. Another decent Korean AD carry that now plays in China. Deft's an incredible player. Like, he was maybe quiet as far as players go just because Klilov was playing surprisingly well and Pawn was just styling all over people in their wins. But Deft has been consistent. He's won many an MVP award as a result for his play. And he's kind of turned from, your quiet little AD carry that was really good at team fights in the late game to an incredible laner with his new support Mako. He can get solo kills. He can do lane swaps. He can kill people in the mid game and carry games there. He can go to late on Jinx and Kog'Maw and still win. Deft's one of the best players in the world. And I expect him to really want to prove that on a big stage like MSI.
Definitely crazy stuff to see. Looking out of North America, Jat, what do we expect?
Yeah, I mean, Wild Turtle, I don't think he's on Deft's level right now. I think Wild Turtle is actually underrated. Deft is probably the best AD carry at MSI. And Wild Turtle is a team fight AD carry because of how much roaming happens in the laning phase from Lustboy, and because so much of the jungle attention is often prioritized to either the enemy jungler or the mid lane. Wild Turtle actually has to play a somewhat safe laning phase. He's actually down in CS fairly frequently in lane, but he will pretty much always come back in the team fight. So that's kind of where I see Wild Turtle sitting in there. It's almost like if I look at all the AD carries here, I think Deft is the best. I think Bang is maybe a little overhyped because of that Game 4 he had against CJ. I think Turtle is potentially a little underrated, but still not at Deft's level. I think Steelback is a passive AD carry who is a team fighter, probably one of the weakest laners. I think Ann is good, not on a great team. I'm taking everyone's points. I'm so sorry. You guys can go in depth. And I think Nardius is in over his head. It's not his fault. These are the best AD carries in the world.
I actually wanted to touch on Ann with you, Clement. You just said he's the one who's really making plays for this team. Why is it that their AD carry can do so much on AHQ?
I don't think a lot of people know this, but Ann has been a top 10 Korean challenger player for a lot of this season. And in terms of laning, he's one of the most dominant laners we've ever had. He has the fastest AD carry to reach 100 CS. He also keeps his opponents from reaching 100 CS around 1 minute earlier. So he's really lane dominant, which is something I don't think Deft has. Also, this new HQ does focus a lot on Ann. If you look at his regular season stats, he rarely had many multi-kills. But in terms of the playoffs, he actually had 4 quadra kills and 1 penta kill. During the stage against TPA, you could actually hear Chowie shouting that, "Oh my god, we can't kill Ann," because he's being protected too well. He also has a really wide champion pool. He plays all of the champions, Lucian, Jinx, even Sivir, more of the teamfight oriented style. Great positioning. He can be kind of iffy-ish sometimes. We say that he's the AD carry that we most often see dead when we come back from a replay. So sometimes he goes into places where he doesn't really want to be, but in terms of team fighting and in terms of laning, I think he might surprise a lot of people as the best AD carry this MSI.
All right, guys, and moving down the list one more time. Everybody's favorite role and the road to fill. It is going to be support, sometimes the one to win the lane for the AD carry as they farm away. We have the other half of that duo lane. Clement, what supports do you feel are the best at MSI?
I actually want to put my vote up for Lustboy. I think he's been having an amazing season. If you look at the IEM, I think his Lulu was just jaw-breaking. His exhaust timings, his teamfight uses of ultimates, they're all good. And in terms of that C9 series, I think if you look at the game 1, even though they lost that game, that flash into that 3-man bubble really secured them a huge early game lead. But I also have to talk about my own region, which is Albus. He is new to the role, but he has been doing a great job on warding. I think he might have broken some sort of record when he placed 102 wards in a single game against TPA.
That'll do. Also watching his Nautilus bottom lane with Ann getting all those kills is awesome to see. Gentlemen, as we move on, who wants to take it next?
Oh, I'll grab this one. I got to put my stake in the ground here, Riv, because Yellowstar is an absolutely fantastic support. Everybody knows that. There's this guy. He's gotten 4 titles in the European LCS. He has been around forever, and it's not just his mechanical prowess that people talk about. It is absolutely his ability to lead this team. He's built this one up from the ground, with their coach, of course, Daler. But, his style of calling, his style of play, roaming around the map, setting up early picks. I mean, this is what Fnatic thrives on. They take the game, they throw it into a state of chaos, and then they just come out on top, able to skirmish, able to fight over and over and over again. And you can see it in some of these high-engaged champs. His Leona made a big comeback during the season, and you could see just how deadly it was.
Definitely a personal feat for him.
Yeah, Yellowstar's Leona, I think, is something that everyone will always remember. If you've seen it once, that kind of is what inspires users around the world to be like, oh, I want to play Leona too. You can make some really big plays. I want to agree with Clement, though, mostly on that. I do hold Lustboy at the top for supports at MSI, and it's not just his Lulu, but the fact that he can play these common initiator supports like Thresh to a highly acceptable level, but then he can do the same plays with the more passive supports like Nami and Lulu, and even Janna sometimes. That's what really impresses me about Lustboy. I also want to kind of raise up Maiko and talk to Pastry Time a little bit about him, because I do think that him and Deft as a combo have really brought out the best of each other. And I know, and I'm coming from LCK, but as I said, I do think Wolf is the weakest link of SKT, and it's not that he's a bad support, it's just that I don't really think he necessarily shines in any part of playing a support, more so than some of these other players coming from other regions.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Chobra. I was also going to say Lustboy. No, Mako's really good as well. Yeah. I joke. Lustboy is excellent, but Mako is, for a rookie support playing in a region that was once upon a time with their AD carries known for support players, Mako's just been unbelievable. Mouse looked great in the early weeks of the LPL playing with Deft, and was kind of only playing Annie. Mako comes along and suddenly playing Annie. I'm like, okay, so they just have only Annie players on their roster. That's fine. And then it turns out he can play just about everything else as well. Mako, for me, I don't know. I feel like I haven't seen him have to play to his full potential yet. His Annie draws bans because it's that good and they're that scared of it. But I feel like everyone else is scared of the rest of EDG, that Mako just kind of does his job quietly and that's all okay. I think if you put Mako in a spot where he has to play make, whether or not he can do it's my big test. And I think he can, because I've seen him go massive in some games. But that's the big question. What happens when you apply true pressure to a support like Mako, who honestly at this point for a rookie, now on a championship-winning team, feels probably mostly untested?
Well, no better to be tested than the mini worlds that people are calling MSI here as we come up to it. We've hit up the teams now and gone roll by roll through the rosters, gentlemen. So let's go down the line and get your predictions. Who will win MSI and why? Chobra, you're in the hot seat.
SK Telecom T1 just got to go with what I believe is the best team in the world right now. And it's because, as we talked, again, sorry for Wolf. I hope Wolf's not watching VTL right now, but sorry for Wolf. But aside from Wolf, all of us have mentioned every one of their players in all of the lanes, whether it's Tom or Bengi, whether it's Faker or EasyHoon. I mean, Bang, sure, he's a little bit quieter, but we've talked about him and his Game 4 against CJ. And then there's Marin, who, as the captain of the team, I think has really grown into his own. So with that said, I think they're, again, just so well-rounded like they used to be in their prime when they won Worlds. So I think SK Telecom T1 is coming back to prove once again, hey, we're back in the spotlight. We're going to take MSI, and then we're going to cruise through Worlds.
All right, Pacer time. Who do you choose?
TSM. No, EDG. Sorry. I have to pick EDG. No, I mean, SKT1 are very good, but I'll echo what Chobra said and just throw it back to EDG. They feel like a well-rounded team. They've got good veterans on it as well, and they arguably outperform every one of their lane compatriots in some element. Maybe not exactly in the lanes. I think for Deft and Pawn, I can say that, but for Koro, he at least outperforms most people when it comes to team fights. And Clearlove, it's all about Clearlove, man. If Clearlove shows up to a big international tournament with his 4+ years of competitive league experience, it'll be tough for EDG to lose a game. But Clearlove has carried them in games, and he has really fallen apart in some of their games. So he's the big worry for me, especially with junglers as aggressive as Tom, and even the likes of Santorin lurking there as well.
All right, Pastry, thank you. Clement, you're up to bat.
Well, I have to put my vote up for the Korean finals again. I think SKT1 is going to take this. Just based off of scrim knowledge, AHQ could take games off of EDG, but I don't think they could even get a scrim with SKT1. SKT1's just like, man, we're not scrimming you guys. So I just think that because they have such high pressure, like, from their laners, like, if they put Faker on, he's going to draw a lot of attention, and the crowd's going to get behind him. And also, they have this variability where they can place different junglers, they can place different mids, and they also have a lot of styles to play with. I just don't really see any team just taking SKT1 off. This is their tournament for sure.
All right, sounds good. Pyra, pick it.
All right, Riv. Well, it was a much easier decision to make before we saw the finals where SKT, just took that big 3-0, and they did it, of course, without Faker and without Bengi. But they look like a very strong team all around. They have a lot of different dynamics that they can go with. They have a very, very hard to call out and hard to prepare for style. But I still am going to give this one to Edward Gaming. They've been a consistent rock in their region. They've been at the top level all the way through the split. I don't see that changing anytime soon, and I don't see it changing for MSI. So I'm going to give this one to the boys from Edward Gaming.
All right, and Jat, I will let you have the last word.
Oh boy, can I do percentages just so I'm not just saying one team, because I think it's somewhat competitive. I'm going to make as many regional enemies as possible right here. I give Korea a 40% chance of winning with SKT because I do think they're the favorites overall. If I go down the line, I need to remember my percentages. I give TSM and EDG the same chance, probably about 20-25% chance of winning. I think EDG, the points Pastry Time brought out, but I think TSM, I am kind of Itza should not be overlooked. The fact that they dismantled CJ Entis, the fact that GE Tigers went there and were destroyed by Team WE, who then went back to China and was better, but still not the best. So I think there's a lot of stuff there. I think Europe is a little over-aggressive. They still need a little bit more time. I give them the next most percentage at like 10. And then I look at AHQ and the international wildcard team. I don't know what I have left, but like 5% and 1 for those guys.
And someone on Reddit, please check Jat's math. I really want to know if he's wrong. That's all
Definitely not, because I didn't have any room for the 1. But there we go.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. We'll find out who was right over the next 4 days. It was a pleasure to have you all here, and we'll talk to you again very soon. And if you are looking to join fellow league fans and watch the midseason invitational finals, Coca-Cola is teaming up with Cinemark Theaters to host viewing parties from coast to coast all over the country. Not only will attendees be able to catch a best-of-5 series on the big screen, but they will also take home a collectible Heimerdinger Cup. I want one myself. 15 different locations across the United States will raise their dongers this Sunday, May 10th. And for more information, check out lolesports.com/VP. But you can sit back and grab the popcorn right now because Kobe is here to present the winners of the first ever PrimeTime League Awards.
Thanks, Riv. Definitely looking forward to those games. But before we name a midseason champion, we have some highly coveted awards to hand out. And remember, these awards are voted on by you, which makes them all the more exclusive. So without further ado, let's roll out the red carpet and reveal the winners of the first ever Primetime League Awards. First up, let's give out the award for the best new LCS meme. The nominees were, by far, from SK Gaming's AD carry Forgiven, Team Solo Mid support Lessboy with Lessina, and from Counter Logic Gaming failing to beat Team Solo Mid when their coach's hair was on the line, Hot Pink GG. And the winner of the first ever Primetime League Award for the best new LCS meme is Lessina with 52% of the vote. Congratulations, Lessboy. Once again, you beat Hot Pink GG, and you've revolutionized the Twitter game of all North American LCS pros. Up next, we have the award for the most huggable pro player. The nominees are Fnatic's top lane phenomenon, Huni, the evil mastermind from Team Impulse, Xiao Xiao, and from the LMS Yowie Flash Wolves, Stake. And the winner of the first ever Primetime League Award for the most huggable pro with 65% of the vote is Huni. I guess we're going to have to get started on some Huni plushies for the store. I'm sure those would be bestsellers. Now I'd like to welcome the delightfully huggable Huni to PTL. How are you doing, Huni?
Oh, it's really cool because I get I winning most huggable player in the world.
Yeah, you've won a lot of awards this spring split. You won the Rookie of the Year. Now you've just won the most huggable pro player. You guys won the split. Which one of those actually means the most to you?
Of course, I like everything, but for me, it's most important is winning in spring split because it was my first experience about a professional player, and then I can be like first professional player, and then I'm first season I winning, and then it's really cool.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So are you really huggable, or is it just a trick to fool the other team?
Yeah, if they do think about me, it's like sweet and huggable and like it's really nice. But if they do think about that, maybe I can smash them like that.
All right, Huni. Well, thank you, and good luck smashing your opponents at the MSI. Congratulations on winning the Primetime League Award, and I'll also be at the MSI, and I'll hope to get a real-life hug from you then.
Of course.
If we gave away an award for the best mic check performance, I'm sure that Huni would have won that too. But we didn't, so let's move on to the award for the best dressed team. And the nominees were from Korea's LCK, the GE Tigers, from the European League Championship Series, the Unicorns of Love, and from China's League of Legends Pro League, GAMTI. And the winner of the Primetime League Award for the best dressed team is Korea's GE Tigers. Well, at least they won something this year. Too soon? Finally, the coaches became an integral part of the LCS onstage experience this year, and they've contributed some unforgettable moments. So our final award is for the best LCS coach's handshake. Nominees are former CLG coach Scar's non-handshake, Dignitas Malexia with the sweet dance moves, and finally, the devastating duo Q of Leviathan and Sheepy. And the winner is 47% of your vote goes to Leviathan Sheep, which proves that we can all use a little carry sometime. Joining to accept their award for the best coach's handshake are Leviathan and Sheepy. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hey. How's it going? First question is going to be, how did you guys come up with this? Did you pre-plan it?
Well, so we were just hanging out before the game started, just like having a chat in the players area. We're like, hey, do you want to do a funny handshake? And Sheepy said, yeah. And we just kind of thought, well, what's the stupidest thing we can do? And we came up with the piggyback. So,
all right. So once you decided on a piggyback, how did you guys decide who was going to get carried? Was it you guys do some duo queue and solo queue on League or something?
I was very straightforward that I would not carry Leviathan. Because in the duo queue, it was already seen that he's quite heavy to carry. But I guess we can do it the next time the other way around, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Anything you want, man.
All right. I'm looking forward to seeing that. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us today, and congratulations again on winning the Best Coaches Handshake Award.
Goodbye. Thanks, man.
Goodbye.
So congratulations once again to all of the nominees and the winners, and thank you to everyone out there who voted on the awards. Now, let's head over to Riv and Jat, who are feeling a bit pentastic.
Thank you, Kobe. I was wondering what that sensation was. And with all of the championship matches from around the world sending teams to the MSI, there have been a lot of insane plays.
Yes, and we have put together the top 5 for you to check out, or as Tallahassee is about to call it, the Penta.
That's right. Riding in at number 5, Clearlove snowballed out of control with his quadra kill.
First blood for TBQ as Akon come down here as well. EDG in a massive CC as Clearlove's going to dive in. He wants to kill him. Koro with a massive ulti though. Double kill for Nunu with the ultimate. Mako uses his finally as TBQ going to fall for a Nunu triple. And Akon, he's diving under the turret. He's trying to get away. He might get Mako, but he's too slow now. Tries to use the smite, doesn't get it, and Clearlove gets a quadra kill.
Rushing in at number 4, Energy steals the Baron.
Very, very low. Taka is looking for something as well. Has all of his mana bar. Misses the charm. Energy steals the Baron somehow. I have absolutely no idea. How did that happen? 2 smites were available as well, and it was a Diana without anything able to dive in.
Launching in at number 3, it was Altec with the epic snipe.
I see
dear. Tucked his tail in. He's good. Don't worry about it.
Oh, what? What?
No, he backed into it! How often does that happen? Amazing! You're like, man, you stink at this game. And you're like, all right, let's just go back and get some dinner or something. Wazam!
Oh, he turns into it at the last second. It's beautiful.
Headbutting into number 2, it was Kiwi Kid with the 5-man knockup.
lines. Can they peel for him enough? Looks like that is yes, and Kid is only 3 autos from being killed. He's just zoned to the back line. A 5-man knockup, and in they go. CarJJ picks up 1. They get 2. Trans can't buy enough time. 4 kills picked up for Dignitas.
It's just waiting. Shifter does not want to over-engage it. Kid's off on the flank with this Righteous Glory, and he just waits for the moment. How many does he get here? It is 5. Absolutely all 5. He catches Suhi with the backside, and then all hell breaks loose. Good Lord. That pulverized.
And coming in at number 1, it was Death's series-ending pentakill to pick up the title for EDG.
They're on top of the Baron. There's the teleport coming through. Ultimate already in for Twist of Hades. So close, and Akon forced the port lane. Clearlove going back in. Akon around the side, but Death finally makes it in. Godby getting tanked up as well. Clearlove actually dies as Pawn goes back in, and Mako's not here, and Death now peeled away, but Korra does so much work in the back line, but it might not be enough here. Pawn needs to find a kill to win, but he QSS is out. Imp gets the kill. That's 2 kills. Death goes back in, flashes aggressive. Pawn needs to tie it away. Death, what the hell? Gets a triple kill, gets the quadra, gets the pentakill. What on earth is going on?
Hope some of that is going on over at MSI, that's for sure. Remember to hit us up throughout MSI with the biggest game-breaking moments from the matches.
Yeah, just tweet them to @LOL Esports, use the hashtag #ThePenta, and then you might see your name right here on PTL.
That's right. And that means this episode of PTL has come to an end. Time to grab my board shorts and sunscreen.
Going to Tallahassee. In just a second, though, Point Break there, because Primetime League will be on a short hiatus until we return on May 27th, just before the start of the LCS Summer Split. With that in mind, let's take a look back at some of the not quite ready for primetime moments we've had over the last year and our last hit.
You gentlemen are brave saying these things on a PTL recording.
Lescina with 52% of the vote. Congratulations, Les Boy. Once again, you beat Hot Pink GG.
Oh, I thought you were going for a high five. You were waving, but I thought, okay, we're good.
Ah! That was close. It was only hair.
Take 5. Take 5.
That's going to be a PTL, isn't it?